Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Trevor Lewington. I'm going to be your parliamentarian today. I'll invite you all to take your seats and get comfortable. We'll call this meeting to order. This is the annual general meeting for the Lethbridge and District Association of Realtors on Thursday, March the 5th at 10 a.m. So, first of all, thank you for being here. I know Kathy is very pleased to have made quorum. That's always an important thing when you have an event like this, so we appreciate your attendance this morning. We're going to get through the business portion quite quickly. We know you're here primarily for our great speakers that we have lined up here today. And of course, we're going to feed you. So that's an important part of the process as well. We do ask that if you haven't already checked in at the table by the door there, that you do so. We do need to record your names to make sure that we have that recorded. And you should have received 2 voting cards. One green for affirmative or in favor of the motions, and one orange if you're opposed. So you do need to have both of those. We will ask you to use those throughout the day so that we see exactly what's going on. So there is also lunch at roughly 12 o'clock today once we get through our open forum. But I've been asked to remind you that if you did not register for lunch, you need to wait and have a conversation with your esteemed CEO, because lunch arrangements were made only for those people that registered in advance. So if we need to have that conversation, we can certainly do that. And speaking of the boss, it's my pleasure to, of course, welcome your esteemed CEO up here to provide a few opening remarks. If you would, make some noise, show her a little love, let her know that you're here. We'll bring Kathy on up.
You're awesome. Thanks, Trevor. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming out today. Appreciate your attendance. I'm going to get right to it. I just want to introduce some of our esteemed colleagues and your leaders here. So, our current president. Oh, and I would just ask, hold your applause till after, just because there's quite a few of them. So we have current president, Mary Gordon, incoming president, John Gulliker, vice president, Justin Meyer. Directors at large will include Brad Cook, Nathan Watson, Helene Jacobson, Amin Iqbal, Manson Kelly, Ursula. We do that every time. Colin Harms, and our outgoing directors, Bruce Galtz, I don't think I see him here today, Miles Godlington, and Tyler Martineau. So let's give them a round of applause. I would also like to introduce our staff, Eldar staff. We've got Sandy Cooger standing way back there, Melanie McCarty here at the front, along with Ursula Wagner. Can't do much without them, so we'll give them a quick round. And our special guest today, we have Christy Kruger, is the area president, or chair, pardon me, you've changed names now. We have Anne-Marie Lurie, who's the area chief economist, will be presenting in a little bit. We have Jim Saunders, the past chair of the Alberta Real Estate Foundation, and his, I'm not sure what title, Sarah, from the foundation as well. And we have the area CEO, Brad Mitchell, here with us today. So just want to welcome everybody here. And I think that's all I needed to say at this time. Thank you.
I think we're going to be playing with this microphone a fair bit today. Is there someone who would be willing to move a motion to approve the agenda for this meeting? I have a mover here. Is there someone who would be willing to second? Christy, right here. Perfect. Could I get a vote? And if you would, use your green card if you're in favor of approving the agenda. Perfect. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. There were AGM minutes from the March 7th, 2019 AGM that were circulated prior to the meeting today. Hopefully there would be someone who's willing to move a motion to approve those AGM minutes, unless there's any corrections, edits, deletions, substitutions, modifications, or other issues with those minutes. Hearing none, mover over here. And is there someone who would be willing to second? Thank you very much. And all those in favor of approving the minutes? Perfect. Thank you very much. Any opposed? That motion is also carried. So it's my pleasure then to introduce to you someone who is no stranger, but your current president for 2019, Mr. Justin Meyer, to come up here and provide some remarks from the president's report.
Come on, Kathy, get that microphone up. Good morning, everyone. So in the packages, you did read the report that was sent for myself. So I just wanted to come up here real quick. We didn't want to take up too much time. We wanted to talk about a little bit what happened in 2019. It was a pretty crazy year for all of us realtors. And when we read our posts and we talk to our fellow members, we know that it was a tough year for a lot of people. So we're looking forward to 2020. 2019 was hard because we had a lot of work to do too. There was a lot of bylaw changes that came up with us, and dealing with the Alberta One real estate that's coming out, dealing with RECA's issues, we'll say, and trying to correct a lot of things that are happening in real estate. And Brad nods and smiles. He's been the big part of fixing it. So it's been great here. So in 2020, we're kind of looking forward to our what we can do with the leadership team. We have a great leader coming in, Mary Gordon. If you don't know her, she's a great realtor and a better person, and I wrote that in the report as well. And she knows that. Yeah, we're good friends now, right? It's weird that you can go on a road trip for 3 hours and not have to play a song, and that's with Mary Gordon. You just talk the whole time. You shut off the music, and it's a great thing. So. Well, it's terrible. So we're really excited for what's going to happen in 2020 with the leadership team that you guys have, along with Kathy. Again, you read my report. It's weird that you become friends with someone that maybe 4 years ago we battled a lot about different policies, and then you start to understand their perspectives, and then they understand yours, and then you're able to be friends and move forward. So it's been really good. I hope we're friends anyway. She's nodding and smiling. So. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say is hopefully in 2020 that we could all pick up our bootstraps and get some deals done. And I think with your directors that are coming in this year, there's a lot of great people that are on the board, so we'll be able to get some work done. So that's all I had, and thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really appreciate all the work that you do, and the association in particular. The fire insurance and real estate sector in Lethbridge is worth a total of 7% of the total economy. So it's a significant driver of economic activity, and the work that you all do is very important to the economic health of our city, which of course is why I am employed. So that's really important to me. With that, I'll invite Ms. Kathy Maxwell back up here, your CEO, to provide the operations report.
All right, thank you. Here we go again. All right. Well, my report's a little bit longer because I'm going to try to inform you on a little bit of the stuff that we've been working on and that we will be working on. So I'm going to try not to use notes too much. But behind me here, we have the mission and our vision. And our vision is to enhance the future of real estate and basically support you guys in selling real estate. And that's our goal. And everything we do should support that mission. Further to Trevor's point, in 2019, the realtors in the Lethbridge and District region generated upwards to $127 million in economic spin-off. So that's about $51,000-ish per deal. So every deal you do, you're contributing to our economics here in the Lethbridge and District. That is significant, and it's worthy. Don't forget what you're doing. I remember as a realtor thinking, am I doing something worthy? You are. Don't forget that. 2019 was a pivotal year for organized real estate in the province. In June, hopefully, we will be rolling over into the one MLS in the province. And that is a real significant move for our board. Now, what's in it for you is you'll be having access to all the data in the province. And that's going to help you do, hopefully, more business and do it with ease. So that will be forthcoming. We'll have lots of announcements coming. It will require a little bit of a change for you guys, but hopefully not. Hopefully not too bad. The other thing that will be happening along with the MLS is the status. This is kind of technical stuff. The status adjustments that you guys do right now, you'll have more opportunity to. We're going to open up those status changes for you, and that's going to require a little bit of education, but we think it'll bring you more flexibility and more control over your listings because the whole province has it right now. So that would be cool. One of our initiatives is to improve our professionalism. And to that point, we're moving to a provincial administrative justice. That's just another word for professional standards. I'm sure you've heard that term. So we're going to be moving to a provincial model where we will have a pool of members who are trained in administrative justice. So when we have a professional standards claim or hearing, we'll go to that pool. And again, what does that mean for you? Why do you care? If some of you have been on hearings before, you know you're adjudicating and issuing sanctions in the day, and later you have to do a deal with them. That's hard. It's awkward. So we're hoping that will be removed and make it a little bit easier for you guys. Okay, something else we've been working on. For a few years now, the board has put a great emphasis on good governance. And so we've been working on a governance manual. And this is no small feat. It is a lot of work. Right, Mary? Yes. But I have to say the committee on it is just fantastic. And they just have the right skill set to do a lot of reading and think through how these policies affect us and you in everyday life. That's happening. We're working on that. I think I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the board of directors. You guys, it's no small contribution when you sit as a board of director or on committees. There's hours spent in meetings, out of meetings, reading, answering, helping me answer questions and things like that. It is a sacrifice for members, and we just can't thank you enough for all that time spent. I would also like to thank the staff who we have to undertake. They undertake everything that the board wants us to do. And I just wanted to thank them now for their commitment, their dedication, and their humor every day as we travel through. That would be directed at Sandy. Yes, that's right. Yes, Sarge. She keeps us laughing every day. Just want to say thank you, guys. So I look forward to 2020. That's all I had to say, unless somebody had any questions about anything I was talking about. All right, thank you.
Now for the most riveting part of the meeting, the most important part of the meeting. I'd like to introduce your chair of the governance committee, and that's Helene Jacobson. There is a proposed bylaw amendment that has been circulated as well, and she'll speak to that.
Good morning. As your governance chair, committee chair, I would like to introduce these proposed bylaws to you today. So the committee that's here, some of the members that are here today is Michael Barnes, Brent Black, Mary Gordon, Audrey King, Ron Lagamat. So they've been working hard on these changes. And what we'd like to propose to you today is in our current bylaws, it states that we have a president-elect and a vice president. And we would like to propose to you to change that to a chair-elect, a vice chair. On the side there, we have the rationale for that. The function of the chair of the board is clearly defined. He or she heads the board of directors, which regulates the company, but is not involved in the actual operation of the company. So we're doing the same as Area just did. It sounds like you guys changed the title to chair as well. Any questions about that? None? And then the next change we would like to add to the votes to govern. We would like to add, should a vote or poll be required apart from the formal meeting of the board of directors may approve a resolution via the use of secure electronic survey or polling method. So basically, just like we all love in real estate to use DocuSign or AuthentiSign, that's one of the methods we would like to also introduce for our board of directors to make votes if we need to. Any questions on that? Thank you.
So there is a proposed motion to amend your bylaws, and just for reference, your bylaws require a 2/3 majority of those present at this meeting in order to pass that. So I would ask that if you are present, that you do vote either way, either in the affirmative or as opposed. Is there someone that would be willing to move the proposed bylaw changes? See a hand over there, thank you. And anyone that would be willing to second? Perfect, thank you very much. Is there, I'll ask that you indicate with the green cards if you're in favor of approving the bylaw amendments. Thank you, and are any opposed? Seeing none, that motion is carried. Thank you for your patience on that. It's my pleasure now to introduce from KPMG, Yvonne Barthel. She is your guru around finances and has prepared your financial statements. So she's here to regale you with all kinds of fun and interesting information about the financial operations of the organization and answer your questions. So Yvonne, we'll welcome you to the front.
All right. Thank you, Trevor. We're going to start then. In your packages, there should be a copy of the financial statement. See, Kathy, I don't actually have to change it for me. I don't actually have to change the height, so we're good. No, we're good. And just to note, I know we'll start off actually with the auditor's report, which is also in your package as well. So just to make a few comments on the auditor's report before we get into the numbers themselves. The independent auditor's report, for those of you that seen the report a number of times before, it is a longer report now. It does have a lot more detail in the report. It is what we refer to as a clean auditor's report, which means that your financial statements are in accordance with accounting principles for not-for-profit organizations. And we've received everything we needed to perform the audit, so there isn't any issues or errors outstanding. The other thing, the auditor's report does go through a lot more detail as to the responsibilities to prepare the financial statements, responsibilities of management, responsibilities of the auditor. It talks about things like independence, that we are independent of the real estate board. And it does also refer to your annual report, which as auditors, we are responsible now to ensure that the information that's included in your annual report is in line with the financial operations and those that are audited in the financial statements. So there is a lot more length to the auditor's report. Just for those of you that have seen an auditor's report that's got a lot of length in the past, it meant that there was probably some bad news that was being communicated through the auditor's report. That may still be the case if there is even more length to an auditor's report that you see, but definitely in the case of the real estate board, the financial statements and the auditor's report is the prescribed auditor's report for an organization in accordance with not-for-profit standards. So with all that said, probably next year we'll all be used to having an auditor's report that's 3 pages long, and I won't go into as much detail. But just so you know, your statements are audited and in line, in our opinion, with accounting standards for not-for-profit organizations. Okay, now on to maybe what is the numbers of the financial statement. So on your financial statement of financial position, you have total assets of 1.4 million, which includes cash and investments that are earmarked for not for current operations, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Out of that 1.4, almost 600,000 of that is actually invested in your property, plant, and equipment, and that is your buildings that you own. The members' equity, so if we look at the liabilities and members' equity side of the balance sheet, so of that 1.4 million of assets, 1.39 is your equity in the real estate board. And again, as I said, almost 600,000 is invested in property, plant, and equipment, $350,000, and the other restrictions there is funds that are set aside and earmarked for future operations, including the first one is contingency, so $350,000, restricted for property, plant, and equipment replacement. So again, we've got a new building or newer building. I know it's been a number of years now. It seems like it was only a few years ago, but money is set aside for replacing equipment, for replacing the building, your fixed assets. Money is also set aside for computer development, technology, and internet fees. So again, with changes that are happening, especially in organizations for real estate boards, with things like Realty One or real estate costs to have a multiple listing service that's Alberta wide, those kind of things. That's where money again is set aside for those costs. One of the things I didn't mention, and sorry, Noni, if you can just flip back up to the top there, This long-term investment, that $46,000 that's on your statement this year and wasn't there last year, that is the money that you have actually invested to date in Alberta One Realty listing. And as Kathy had mentioned, that's that organization or that network or partnership. It is actually an investment in a company called Alberta One Realty Inc. is set to operate the multiple listing service Alberta wide, and that is where you have actually put your investment into that organization, and you are a 10% voting member of that organization. So that's yeah. So sorry I didn't mention that. Going on then to the next page, if you do have questions, we can definitely take them as we go through. I know Brad had said he was very interested in the presentation today, so and I took that at his word. So yeah. The next page is the statement of operations, and for 2019, the top line there is the members' dues that are transferred to CREA and area. So other than the portion that does stay with the local board, but it's shown on your statements just so you know when you're making those payments that they do come into the real estate board and then are flowed through to area and CREA. Underneath that, the service fees, if we look at that line there, you budgeted 701,000. Actual was 739, and if we look at 2018 was 708,000. So budgeted members this year was about 324, which was pretty close to where you were at the end of December of 2018. 2019 saw some increases in members, and as a result, those service fees are higher than budgeted. What that does as well is it does affect other places in your statement of operations where additional members increases some of your expenses. For example, your matrix and database system and your super key system. Of course, if you look at those expenses, they're pretty much in line with budget, but they are higher than last year just because there are additional members this year than the prior year. The other of note on the statement of operations, if you're comparing budget to 2019 and then to 2018, something, of course, that isn't in your revenue this year, of course, is the golf tournament, because there wasn't one in 2019 and there was one in 2018. So you'll see that's mainly the reason for the decrease in revenue from 2018. The application and transfer fees is higher, but again, that's because there's new members in 2019. As we look under the expenses then, again, as I said, there's some expenses that are increased because of the additional members. But for the most part, they're in line with budget. Repairs and maintenance. There's additional costs for snow removal, of course, in 2019, and we can all remember those times in the past year. Other than that, again, there isn't any cost for a golf tournament this year as well. And when we get to the bottom line there, we've got a excess of revenue over expenses, which is really as a result of the increase in members this year. If we look at, though, the next page, and this is where we saw this on your balance sheet, on your statement of financial position, and we said in total that the real estate board has 1.3 or almost 1.4 million of members' equity and how that is separated out. As I said, 592,000 or almost 600,000 of that is actually invested in your real estate. Restricted money for contingency of operations, and for property, plant, and equipment replacement, and for computer development, technology, and internet fees. The board has approved increases into those restrictions or those reserves this year. So that's why those numbers have increased over the past year in order to have additional funds for contingency, and that number is pretty close to probably a half year of operating budget. That's how much money is set aside in case the operations or you weren't able to operate for a number of months or so. There is a definitely money set aside for any contingencies. Property, plant, and equipment replacement and computer technology, we did discuss that. So those numbers are more in line with where they should be at the end of 2019. As I may not have mentioned, so the financial statements were approved by the board on February the 19th, and the date of the auditor's report is that date as well. The rest of the financial, well, maybe we'll stop right there for a second. Sorry, we just stay right there just for a moment. And just to go back to that long-term investment, it is new in your statements, but of course, you're now part of the operating agreement with the shareholders of Alberta One Realty Listing Services, Inc., or Alberta One, as we've shortened it there. And that again is to operate the regional Alberta real estate listing service. So that's what it shows up as. You've got your 10% ownership and then additional investment in what's called Class C common non-voting shares. So you do have money invested in that operation at this point. The rest of the financial statements or the notes to the financial statements, I'll try not to stop you this time as we go through there. The rest of the financial statements are specific disclosures that are required. There isn't anything that is out of the ordinary from the prior years, and it does go through and talk about your commitments, and there is more detail on the schedule of expenses for leadership training, advertising, and office. So there is specific information there on those categories as well. So with those are the highlights, and that is the information that I did want to bring forward to you. And if there are any questions, I can definitely take those at this time as well. If there is anything, look at Brad. That's nothing. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Yvonne. It's always nice to see a clean audit report and a healthy balance sheet with good income. So you should all be very pleased with that. We appreciate KPMG's work on behalf of the association. I now invite Ms. Mary Gordon to join us in her role as chair of the Finance Committee to talk a little bit about the RFP process.
Oh, Lordy. I'm going to break it. I wish this were taller, so then there wouldn't be so much of this showing. Just saying.
Just go on your knees.
Yeah, the tall jokes, right? So thank you, Yvonne, for your work this year. So as part of one of our jobs on the FAR committee, which stands for Finance, Audit, and Risk, is to make sure that we have financial audit of the association. And so we thought, because as you know, accountants are an expensive part of what some of our fees go to, we want to make sure the members got value for their money. And the only way to do that is to, just check out how has our accountant been doing, and are we happy? So what we did was we did do a request for proposal from other firms. And so we received those. The board of directors and executive went through them. And in the end, KPMG came out on top, both what they offered for services and also what their fees for services were. So we felt that they are a good choice moving forward from here on. And so that's why we're here today. And I guess, Trevor, you'll call up on the motion.
So your Finance Committee is proposing that KPMG be retained as the auditor for 2020. Is there someone that would be willing to move that motion? See a hand over there, Mr. Finance himself. Thank you, Brad. Is there someone who would be willing to second? Thank you. Again, by show of your green cards, if you're in favor of that motion. And are there any opposed? Seeing none, that motion is also carried. I'd like to call one last time upon your current president, Mr. Justin Meyer, to come to the front and present some gifts to directors that are retiring. So this is his last shot officially at the microphone today. Send your president some love. Just, round of applause, a little enthusiasm. He's the man.
So you're supposed to tell a joke, right? There once was a man from Nantucket. No, okay, I don't know that joke. Okay, so I think I just want to really quickly say an integral part of being part of a real estate board is diversity and the divergence of ideas. And we also think that growth is required to run a good board. So having the same people year over year doesn't really help. So even though we're sad to see 3 people outgoing, we're really excited to have 3 new people in and new blood coming to it and new ideas. So I just wanted to quickly recognize the 3 that really helped us over the last 2.5 plus 3 years. We have Miles Godlinton in the, can you come up front? We have a gift for you too, please. Oh, the other 2 are not here today, so they had enough of us. Nah. And the other 2 are Bruce Galtz, who couldn't be here today, and Tyler Martineau. They all put in a ton of hours working with us, so really appreciate them being on the board with us, and we look forward to 2020 with our new directors. Thanks.
Yeah, having a strong board and having leadership in your community, appreciate the volunteers that invest their time to make your association better. That's an important consideration. So speaking of board, it's time to recognize our new board members. So I'll invite Christy Kruger up here, who's no stranger to this audience, in her role as chair of the Alberta Real Estate Association.
Good morning, everybody. I get to do the oath of office for our new directors. So I would like to call to the front Mary Gordon, John Gulliker, Justin Meyer, Brad Cook, Helene Jacobson, Colin Harms, Manson Kelly, Nathan Watson, and Amin Iqbal. That's because I crossed it off and wrote it right. So it's my pleasure and privilege to install the 2020 Board of Directors for the Lethbridge and District Association of Realtors. I would ask that we now collectively take the pledge of office. So please repeat after me. I solemnly promise, in the presence of those assembled here, that I will do to the best of my ability, faithfully perform all of the duties and obligations to which I have been elected. Oh, pertaining to the office to which I've been elected, sorry. And that I will carry out the rules, regulations, and bylaws of the Lethbridge and District Association of Realtors, the Alberta Real Estate Association, and the Canadian Real Estate Association before my own. It is with full understanding of the responsibilities of my office that I offer this pledge. Ladies and gentlemen, your board of directors for 2020. Thank you, guys.
I'm pretty sure that oath was longer than my oath of office or citizenship, for that matter. Thorough. That's the way I would describe that. I'd like to now call upon Mary Gordon to come back and join me at the front. She is going to speak to us about a few members of your association that passed away during the last term, and she'll also have a presentation to make for the president's plaque. So I'll invite Mary back up.
Thanks, Trevor. So this is the sad part of the program when you get to recognize the people that are no longer with us. Oh, I'm so emotional about that. But it is sad because one day it'll be one of us. soon. Anyway. It's true. Yeah, it will. So, first of all, I'd like to recognize Don Lacroix, Joe Mazaris, Lyndon Lomanovsky, and Mo Harris. They all left real estate way too soon and in an unfortunate way. So, I'd like to take a moment of silence, please, to remember them. Thank you. Thank you. So, oh, I'm still up here. So here's the fun part of the program. I get to present Justin Meyer, my friend. Wasn't before, but we are now. Spent many an hour with this young man. I've learned a lot. I have never met somebody that can multitask as much as this fella can. I think he's, yeah, at times it was a bit disruptive, I got to be honest. The computers, the text over here on the screen, this here, like that brain is working like that. And it's interesting to watch. It's, you can learn a lot from it. It can be annoying the odd time. But 99% of the time, I enjoyed my time with Justin. And I got to share this because this is a cute story. So we were traveling to Banff. Are you okay if I tell you? We're going to Banff, and you know when you pull up there, and Justin and I traveled together a fair bit our last couple of years together. And so we pull up, and of course, Mr. Meyer has a reservation, and they're wondering if they could help Mrs. Meyer's bags to the room. And so I'm looking at just like, he's old enough to be my son. And it's like, okay, so what does that make me look like? Like cougar comes to mind. And I'm thinking, is this probably going to insult him anyways? So the next time we go to Banff or somewhere else, the same thing happened. And Justin's rolling down the window thinking, I'm wondering if they're going to refer to you as Mrs. Meyer. And anyhow, that's my takeaway from traveling with Justin. And so anyhow, we've had lots of great conversations because the new way of real estate, the young, fast, quick way, and the old, I don't want to, let me reword that. The highly seasoned people that started pre-internet, we have a lot in common and we have a lot not in common. And so when the two of you can travel for hours and hours and share stories, really, we're a great team together. So it really is my great pleasure to say I've enjoyed my time with you, as I think he really served the members well. It wasn't always easy. When you're chair of professional standards, that's not a fun task. So unfortunately, I think probably there's some agents that are not very happy with him. And really, he made good decisions, and it really wasn't all him. It was his board, but you know, it was his committee. So, and we have to uphold the rules. So he did that, and he did that well. He also had a very, very tough year, you know, losing his mom and, you know, brother-in-law. And what you have to know about Justin is he didn't let his real estate board duties down when he was fighting through that. So that just says what kind of guy he was or is. And so for that, you're the good person. Anyhow.
So that was your advance notice for next year's AGM. There'll be a new policy on travel and accommodation for association events.
Oh God, and I get John Gallagher.
No judgment. We'll let the media decide. One of the things that your association is able to do is bestow an honorary lifetime member, and that's an honor bestowed upon those that have serve the association. So to speak a little bit about the process and speak a little bit about the value of that award, I'll invite Colin Harms up here to talk to us about how that works.
Thank you. Whoever whistled.
I did, but I'll take credit.
All right. Today I have the pleasure of welcoming 3 of our members as honorary members. As we met as a committee, we talked about one person and who would that be and why would they be. And then we reviewed the criteria and it read like this. Minimum of 25 consecutive years of membership. They've made significant contributions to the industry and their communities. They have carried on business in accordance with the spirit of the Realtor Code and standards of business practice. So we were really, reviewing. And then, as a committee, we said, well, there's 3 people amongst us today that are deserving of that award. And it's amazing. I have the pleasure of introducing one who I've not yet met, but there's a lot of similarities between her and I. She started organized real estate September 1st, 1972. I was born 4 months later. What else happened in 1972? Interest rates were just over 7%. Average cost of a new home, $27,000. Average income per year, just over $11,000. Average monthly rent was $165. And the Premier of Alberta was Peter Lougheed. Those are some amazing things if you look at where I've come from and where I am now. But about Bernadette McNabb, 47 years as a member. I don't know. That deserves a hand clap. Needless to say, I was at a meeting in Calgary yesterday, and a bunch of realtors were just being people. And, it was doom and gloom in Calgary and burying their head in the sand. Bernadette has probably seen a few market changes. I was thinking about the stress test. I don't know, 23%? That's stressful. Yeah, that is. And Bernadette, we have yet to meet. Fortunately, Gordy showed me who you were. I have nothing but praise to say, phenomenal. 47 years and smiling. Still smiling. So, yeah, I would just like to call you up. And also, Mary Meyer, if you could come up, please. Oh. All right.
I'm taller than you.
Yeah, Bernadette, would you like to say a few words? Sure.
Well, I'm surprised. I'm genuinely touched. I'm humbled. And I'm grateful to receive this recognition. The real estate industry has given me the opportunity to serve people, to serve the public, and that has been my pleasure. It has afforded me to live out my passion, and it has also given me the opportunity to work with who I would describe the finest people that you would meet anywhere on this planet. And I mean, all of you right here in our local board, present members and past members also. And if you know me, you will have heard me say this before. I've always maintained that we have the best anywhere right here. And I'm so proud to have been and to be associated with you all. My family, our 2 sons and my husband were blessed for many years through working in this business. And I can honestly say it doesn't get much better than that. And I also would like to say, without the brilliance, excellence, hard work, and support of my late husband, Dave McNabb, I would not be standing here. And so with that, today's his birthday. So I want to share that with him. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I would like to call on Audrey.
It's my pleasure and privilege to introduce our next Lethbridge and District Association of Realtors Honorary Life Membership. This gentleman's quiet demeanor tells you that he listens more than he speaks. But when he does speak, shares his advice, it doesn't fall on deaf ears. His modest approach to business tells you that he has a sincere approach to all of his endeavors. This second honorary recipient has been in organized real estate since 1980, and I've had the privilege to work with him for just about all of those years in different capacities, but always as a great friend. For 40 years, Russell Raslask has dedicated his time to building a better association for our members and an industry to be proud of. Most importantly, Russell has dedicated his time to building better communities and neighborhoods for everyone to enjoy. In 1990, the Lethbridge and District Association of Realtors recognized Russell as Realtor of the Year. He served on our board of directors from 1993 to 2001, 9 consecutive years. During that time, he sat on numerous committees and served as our president in 1999 and 2001. Russell's other dedications included countless hours at Southminster United Church, the YMCA, and the Rotary Club of Lethbridge. Most recently, he has been involved for 5 years with the Urban Development Institute, and from 2018 till present, he sits as director on BUILD, which is the Builders Industry and Land Development. This is a merger of the Lethbridge Home Builders Association and the Urban Development Institute. To a most deserving, well-respected, and dedicated person in our organization, please join me in welcoming Russell Raslask as an honorary member of the Lethbridge and District Association of Realtors.
There you go. Thank you very much. This is truly an honor. My term in real estate has been very enjoyable, and I've especially enjoyed making friends with all of you, and I look forward to continuing in that. Thank you.
And last but not least, where is Nathan? I'd like to call Nathan up. Nathan Watson's going to present to the next honorary member. And this honorary member I know quite well, very good friends with. He began his career in 1976. Is this picture up there yet? No. So if you can look around the room, I bet you can guess who it was.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here presenting for the honorary membership for Miles Godlington. I had a member a couple weeks ago tell me that I could probably call this speech the 50 Shades of the Gray Area in real estate. I also considered making this a roast for Miles Godlington, but that'll probably have to wait for another day here. So Miles started his real estate career in 1976, and along with being a 44-year member, top realtor in Lethbridge for many years, Miles received the award for Realtor of the Year in 1984, and has also, but has given back a lot of time and energy to both the real estate cooperative and to the public. Miles was an owner of Remax Real Estate here in Lethbridge before starting Godlington Realty, and then obviously later changing the name of the brokerage to lethbridgerealestate.com. Miles has served on the board of directors for 4 years, including the last 3, and last year was last year's vice president. Miles, his public service, he was involved in the JCs for about 15 years, from the late 70s to the early 90s. The JCs were a men's group that did charity and fundraising events in and around Lethbridge. And for years, Miles also spearheaded a massively successful Crime Stoppers charity golf tournament, just to name a few. I've had the honor of working with Miles at Lethbridge Real Estate for almost 5 years here. And I've considered it a privilege to have the opportunity to learn from Miles during that time. In doing my research for this presentation, I was given a newspaper clipping for an ad that Miles had taken out in the Lethbridge Herald that read, "To be an institution, you must have longevity." And it's no surprise that after 44 years in the business, Miles has become a real estate institution in Lethbridge. Though some of the members that I talked to about Miles, I had to curb their enthusiasm that Miles was receiving an award and not actually being institutionalized. If you've dealt with Miles in the past, you've probably seen his passion for business, and he's always pushing for things to be done the right way. I talked to a Remax agent here a few months ago. And he told me a story about Miles, that Miles had made an offer on one of his properties. This is a few years ago, maybe 20 years ago, and this other agent was pretty green in the business, was learning a little bit, and in the offer, this is the days before web forms. In the offer, in the same font as the rest of the terms in the offer, Miles had written in a term that said that the buyers were not going to be paying a property tax adjustment, and that it would be the seller's responsibility. Unbeknownst to both this realtor, the sellers, and the seller's lawyer, nobody caught it on the contract. Possession day came. Buyers never paid a property tax adjustment, and this realtor marched into Miles's office and had some choice words for him. But he did say that no matter what, whether you like it or not, Miles is going to teach you something, and that taught him. Being a pretty green realtor at the time, it taught him, hey, every contract that I get, I need to read line for line, because just in case someone like Miles tries to sneak something in there. Even after 5 years working with Miles, it still scares me a little bit when I have to write an offer on one of his properties, spending the little extra time dotting the I's, crossing the T's. But the fantastic thing about Miles and his willingness to teach people, to educate people, is that he'll always pick up the phone, answer any questions you have. Just not Tuesdays and Friday afternoons, because he'll be at the country club golfing there. So
Miles has been given the nickname the idea guy. I've heard this from a few different people. He was always pushing the boundaries with advertising and marketing in his early career. And for the newer members, if you think that you have a new idea that might sell a house or help get new clients, you can go talk to Miles and he'll tell you whether it will work or not, because he's likely thought of that idea already and tried to and tried to put it into practice at some point over the last 44 years. Longtime members, I'm sure, will remember the full-page Lethbridge Herald ads showing nothing but the face of young Miles. Not a stitch of writing, not a slogan, just Miles sporting his 80s mustache. And it's that kind of creativity that allowed Miles to become a top realtor, and in the late 1980s helped him to sell 250 houses in a single year. Pretty impressive. I just want to say, Miles, thanks for always being willing to pass on your knowledge and to help educate us both at our brokerage and for people outside the brokerage. And thanks for always having a passion in real estate. And again, for the contributions that you've made both to the real estate cooperative and to the community. That's amazing. Been a pleasure learning from you over the past 5 years and look forward to continue learning from you. Thanks.
How much time do you have?
3 minutes.
Good luck. But it's an honor to be inducted with two people I've known for a very long time and have a lot of respect for. Russell and I have gotten in our share of trouble. The 80s were good times. Anyhow, this industry means so much to me. The people in this industry mean a lot to me. And it might not seem like it when we're doing a transaction, but I have a lot of fun. And I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from everybody here. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, and I say that a lot. But when I see something or somebody doing something good, something right, I'll steal it. And I'll twist it. Speaking of being committed, I have been twice. So, institutionalized. I've been helped by some of the best professionals in Canada. None of it took, but I was willing to take the abuse. So, probably the most important thing that I can share is there is no limit to what you can achieve in this industry. Success isn't doing 1 million deals. Success is financial, yes, but enjoying your career, giving back to your community, to your industry, and having a little fun while you go along. And I've had a lot of fun. Regrets? Can't think of any. I'm sure someone will tell me. But I've got great friends. I got great friends in this room and in this business, and I've learned a lot. And my time at RE/MAX was really crazy good. So appreciate you all. And 2020 is going to be the best year we've ever had. Thank you.
The one theme I heard in everybody's discussion was the word passion. And, Don Lacqua was actually my neighbor in Sterling, so sad to see him pass this year. Neighbor by a few streets over, but in Sterling, everyone's neighbors. But, one day you pass him in the park, you pass him and his wife would go for a walk down the street, and then the next day he's just not there. So, it's sad to see several of your members pass away, but let's use that as a reminder and think about that statement that we just heard from Miles, but we also heard from Bernadette and we heard from Russell around passion. passion for your job, passion for your career, passion for your community. So thank you to all three of you for your commitment, not only to your industry, but to this community. It's evident from the laughter in the room, from the smiles and from the standing ovations that you've had an impact. And hopefully we can all measure up to that standard as we go forward, or at least get away with something in our contracts. Finally, our final speaker before we move into the open forum portion of today's meeting, but our last speaker for the AGM itself is your president, our seasoned, I believe was the word you used, experienced, wily veteran of the real estate industry, Miss Mary Gordon.
Thank you, Trevor. And just so you know, Trevor came to us with no cost. Isn't that a Dutch down? Like when you're a finance chair, just saying. And he's, sorry, Cheryl, we got a new guy. Anyways, I guess with the new bylaw change, I'm probably the first impeached president because now my name is chair. And you know, when we did that governance, Kathy tried to convince us to do it back then when I was the chair of governance. And I kind of like pushed it to the side, said, no, I don't think I like the president. That's got a good ring to it. And so now when I walk into TD and I see that big green chair in the poster, it's like, that's me. Christy, that's you. Like we're chair. So anyways, that's the modern way. So yeah, at least for green. Exactly. So anyway, so I thought, what do you want to hear from your president? So I'm going to put it out there. What do you want to hear for President's Chair's remarks? So I thought, well, maybe we should talk about our association a bit. And first of all, I think a lot of thanks goes out. One, who are the broker owners in the room? The brokers? Could you stand up for a minute? Any broker owner, please stand up. Your role is so important because you are the ones hiring and training the agents. And without you and your work and what you have to do, we wouldn't be where we are. So thank you for hiring 337, I think. Is that our count? So thanks. And self-regulation, I think brokers are certainly aware of how that works. We want to post we're friends with so many of agents amongst ourselves, but then we're the first to report them. So self-regulation, I know we're working on that all the time. This year, we'd really like to keep the Professional Standards Committee unemployed. So if we behave ourselves, post positive things, I think that will come. One of the things that we run into a lot in Lethbridge is what I've been told is our marketing materials. And I know, Miles, you pushed the envelope when in the 80s were fun, I gotta say. Like big hair, I mean, honest to God, wide leg pants, those were fun. And lots of alcohol. Like you just did deals. There was no internet to keep you busy. So you went to the office and you did deals at night with a landline. And all of these members, call me squirrel. I'll go here and go here. You never know what conversations you're going to get, but that's the fun part, right? What I want to say is all of these honorary members or anybody pre-1995, they started their career without the internet. Just think about that for one day. Can you go 1 hour? You guys are vibrating right now. I know you want to check, you want to do something. We did our business without the internet. And we were successful. We did face-to-face. Face-to-face meant something totally different than FaceTime now. So anyways, if you find that sometimes that internet isn't very personal, it isn't. So resort back to face-to-face. And I guess that's part of the message that I want to deliver today. We're so busy being instant with our business. We're so quick to post something that really it's not flattering to our industry. It's not flattering to our city. We live in this community, this city. We have to send a positive message because we don't want people Google searching and finding Lethbridge isn't a great place to live because of the minority posts, the 1%, the bad, uninformed opinions that hit the social media. So I guess my word today is let's invoke a 72-hour clause on ourselves. And before you hit send, read it, maybe send it, get it vetted. Should you be sending it? Is it a negative to our city? Is it a negative to you as our industry or you personal? And we got to remember, our clients, what's the first thing they do when you send a referral? They Google search your name. And if that's attached to a lot of controversy, I don't think that's the, you might lose just for doing that. So like I say, I think we should have positive post Friday, Monday through Friday. It will help our industry. Post something good about your colleague. Post today, we saw 3 honorary members that deserved a great post. Those are the things we want. We want to enhance our city. This is where we make our living from. We can't trash our city. So if that's the comments, let's stay away from that. I think it really is imperative that we, show a good face. I also want to say thank you to Kathy and her staff. These girls have worked tirelessly. Talk about heart and head in the game. These gals have it. They really, really do. I'd like to say thanks to the governance committee. They are the ones that are sort of looking through the rules, helping develop policies. The board of directors are getting their recommendations. So if you think for a minute the board makes all the decisions, they don't. They're taking recommendations. So that's important to know. I'd like to thank our nominating committee for the work they do. And I think what I'd really like to see is more people step up. We have a good set of volunteers now, but please, we'd love to have your input. And I know in elections, many times the elections rely on good speeches, but what it's appearing is, are we overlooking people that could be good for the job, but their speech isn't funny enough, right? And so we went to a session, Kathy, John, and I, and I'm not Mrs. Gallagher. Thank God. Yeah, we went and they were talking about introvert and extrovert, and to have a successful board, you need a combination of the two. And when we get people up here and we have too many extroverts, it doesn't make always for good decision making. It's fun, disruptive, but the true thinkers and the ones that really, you need your set of introverts. So I just want to share that with, if you're disillusioned from running because you didn't get in, I've given the speech that they better pick the right people. And in saying that, we have an awesome group. I'm very excited to work with the board of directors that I have. I'm not sure who's introverted, extroverted, but I'm working on figuring it out. Some of it's showing up quite easily and others might not be. So, I guess in closing, I think Lethbridge, well, I know you're going to hear some really good information from Anne-Marie. We will have probably the best 2020 we can. You're in a business where people from the 70s and people, brand new agents now, can thrive. And I think the nice part, when I look around the room, we've got a mixture of everybody in here. So it does make it fun. You wouldn't want to work with all young. You wouldn't want to work with all old. We've got a great combination. And I think we've got a very, very positive attitude in Lethbridge. It was interesting listening to Cliff Stevenson, who was here for our elections, when he goes across the country and sits in other board elections, and he kept saying how amazed he was with the engagement here in Lethbridge. And I have to, we don't know because we just think, oh, only 70 people, we have 337. Well, an election, we get 9 people running for 4 positions. That's awesome. In Calgary, they have 5,500 agents and they get 9, they're hoping to find somebody to run. So really, we have to give ourselves a hand, give ourselves an applause really for being engaged. And it's really nice to see how many people are here. I just can't thank you enough for your engagement, and it's great. So also thank you to the guests that came, Brad. And Anne Marie, Trevor, thank you very much for hosting. That's not a good word. It's a proper chair word. The proper president word. Anyway, thank you very much. I look forward to serving you as your 2020 chair. And I'll try not to be the lazy chair. Oh, carry on. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. Word to the wise from the chair of your board and the leader of your association for 2020. We appreciate your willingness to step up, Mary, and to take that on. And although I'm certainly happy to host, I am not paying for the bill. That concludes the formal portion of the annual general meeting. Could I have someone make a motion to adjourn? Thank you very much. We don't need a second or a vote, so we'll consider the official portion of the AGM closed. We're going to move now into our open forum. And the board did ask that we have just a quick 5-minute session. We will limit it to that. But were there any questions from the members to your board and to your staff that haven't been addressed in the communications that you've received or in the operations report or anything on the financials? Wanted just to provide an opportunity for any questions from the floor today, if there were some. This is the audience participation part of the program, just so you know. Okay, hearing none, just encourage you that if you do have questions about any of the materials you received today, Kathy would love to hear from you. She's happy to answer those questions and provide you with that information as a follow-up. But we did want to just take a few minutes in case there was a concern or an issue, but seeing none, we'll move forward. So it's my pleasure then to introduce to someone that you already know, and that's Anne Marie Lurie, who is the chief economist for Area. And she's going to talk to us a little bit about the forecast for our region. A couple of things that I'll share with you that are close to my heart. In 2017, GDP, which is our measure of the economy in Lethbridge, grew by 5.8%. In 2018, we grew by 5.1%. In 2019, we're forecast to grow at a rate of about 2.6%, which feels like a significant slowdown when you're coming off north of 5%. But you have to remember that's triple the number of what the rest of the province is expecting. And for 2020, the Conference Board of Canada forecasts economic growth for Lethbridge at 2.7%. So that's a pretty significant number when you look in the context of what's happening both in Alberta, nationally, and even internationally. But that's sort of the macroeconomic number. That's the one I'm responsible for. But let's get Anne Marie up here to talk to us about the details behind your industry and how you contribute to that.
Okay. So you pretty much took the first little bit of things that I was going to say, but that's okay. One of the things, when you do look at this province, it has been a struggle everywhere but here. And that is a reality. This is probably the most upbeat presentation I might give in the past 5 years. So, one thing that we've seen, no, I don't think I'm. So we know that, okay, there we go. We go provincially, most of the economy has been struggling. Okay, so over the past year, we went through a 2-year recession in Alberta, right? So we had, declines over a 2-year period, mostly due to what's happening in the energy sector. Even last year, growth was slowing. But look at Lethbridge's numbers. Okay, I'm now going to stand in front of it. So through all of this, Lethbridge has not contracted at all. You've continued to have GDP growth every year and far surpassing even what's happening province-wide. Okay, so this is why you fundamentally have a different situation here, and it's because of your lack of reliance. You're not reliant on what's happening in the energy sector. It's what makes it different. So when you're seeing all of this news coming out over what's happening in the province, this is not what's happening here. Okay, so it is very different. Now, as far as what's happening in the province, this is very sensitive. Where am I pointing to? I got to go back a couple slides. Nope, you're going forward. Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry, that's weird. It doesn't usually do that. As far as province-wide, nothing really is expected to change much this year. The reality is the energy sector is still struggling, and that is impacting the provincial economy. Not much growth is expected. We're supposed to see some pickup in activity, possibly because of movement on one pipeline, but this is no quick turnaround as far as the province is concerned. Right now, does that impact Lethbridge? To a certain extent, in the fact that it could impact budgets. It could impact provincial budgets. So that's where there is some tie, but on the whole, your economy is still expected to grow, okay, because you do not rely on this. Now, the energy sector is not changing overnight. We know this, and Alberta still isn't diversified. And I mean, as much as they talk about being diversified, they're not. Lethbridge is. It's a really different story. Okay, sorry. And it impacts employment. So when it comes to housing, what do I really care about is how the overall economic activity starts to influence employment activity. And what we've seen even in the last year across the province, we've seen that there have been pullbacks. Now, it's not really a surprise because there was production, there was limits put on, production in the next year for the energy sector, and that started to cause layoffs. Right? We saw it through the Red Deer region. We saw it through a lot of other regions that employment was scaling back last year. Now, the Lethbridge Medicine Hat area is combined into one. They do have, and I do have some specific numbers for Lethbridge, but we know that monthly number that's being reported is mostly on a Lethbridge Medicine Hat combined. Now, there's a big difference between what's happening in Medicine Hat versus what's happening here. Your unemployment rates are sitting closer to 4%. Medicine Hat's over 9%. Okay, so there's a big difference, and it's not great when they're combined because unfortunately, that's what most people look at, and they'll bucket you the same as Medicine Hat, but it really isn't, right? What we've also seen happen provincially is there's been a fundamental shift in what's happened with jobs. Okay, so we have seen that there's still more people working today, provincial-wide, than there was back in 2014 when the energy market first came down. But the composition has shifted. Most of the growth that's happened has been coming in the form of education and healthcare and government. Okay, so province-wide, that's accounted for 75% of the job growth. That's pretty significant. So when I talk a little bit about risk, that might be where some of the risk lies, is what will happen with those jobs moving forward, especially as the provincial government starts changing their budgets, right? Where we have not seen growth is in our traditional sectors. Now, primary and utilities means something different in Lethbridge than it does in the province. Primary and utilities province-wide is mostly energy related. Here, it is not, okay? But on the whole, there's still less people working in that industry in the province. Construction, manufacturing, these are all areas that we've seen some job losses, and those tend to be higher paid industries. Okay, so where province-wide, you're losing jobs that are higher paid. And this has caused impacts on the housing market. It's why provincially you've seen sales activity fall. You've seen prices trend down because people just aren't earning as much as they used to, okay? But Lethbridge, again, different story. So one of the key things I like to point out is take a look at your share of employment. First of all, you tend to have province-wide, there's more people working in primary and utilities. Again, that's because that mostly reflects the energy sector, as well as professional services, which also really reflects the energy sector. So you have less of that in this area. What you do have more of is healthcare and education. Okay, so you do have a higher, now, I guess to a certain extent, that's not a surprise given that you have universities and things like that. So for the size of your community. But because of this composition and because you're so different than the rest of the province, it makes you more stable. One thing that I have to say about Lethbridge's market is you're far more stable than any other sector because you're much more diversified on your economy. I took a look at really what was your Lethbridge employment numbers and did the same sort of comparison to what we had in the province. Look at the difference. Since 2014, the only area that you've lost jobs in, only at 300 jobs, right, has been information and culture. So what is that? That's your media services, essentially. That's the only area that you've had job losses. Every other area, you've had improvements. Now, yes, a good portion of them have been in education and healthcare, but it's not at the 75% that we had province-wide. It's actually only 40% of the total job growth. You have had job growth in other areas like construction, like business services, manufacturing. So your growth has been very broad-based, and that is what's supporting much more stability and growth in your housing markets, because it's not just one industry that's improving. You're seeing it across many different industries, and that's a good thing. Okay. So Stats Canada, like I said, they do combine the employment activity for Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, but not on an annual basis. So you can actually get annual figures for Lethbridge to see what's happening in your actual employment numbers. And what we could see, so last year you did have a bit of pullback in employment. So there's a couple things going on here. I saw some employment loss, some job losses last year in the total numbers. But again, you got to break down that information. Where were the job losses actually occurring? First of all, it wasn't much. Okay, so you didn't lose a lot of jobs last year. It was pretty small on the scale of things. You actually had growth, though, in areas like primary and utilities. So that is your agriculture sector. You had growth in manufacturing. You had growth in wholesale and retail trade. Education and healthcare, all of those areas grew. Those are generally the better paid industries that you had growth in. So even though you did have some pullbacks, on the whole, you're still seeing improvements. And that is going to continue to support demand growth if we look into this year. That will support further growth in sales activity. Now, one thing I also like to look at is the unemployment rates, right? Your unemployment rates are very low. By standards of comparing, like when you've seen that those unemployment rates have come down in Lethbridge, like I said, you're sitting at that 4% range compared to Medicine Hat, which is at 9%. That's a big difference. Like that's, economists look at that as that's pretty close to full employment, right? So that is not a bad situation to be in. So again, when I'm looking at this on the whole, yes, you've had some changes. Yes, you've had some job losses, but it's not enough to derail your market. Your housing market is stable for a reason, because there just continues to be this steady improvement that is supporting further sales activity. And we can see it. So this graph looks really different. This is the sales activity in Lethbridge. It looks real different than what we see in other regions. Okay. Yes, 2006 was a bit of a spike. Now you also had a population spike at that time. So it was different. But you know what? When I look at this compared to every other region in the province, they're all like way below longer term averages. Okay, so you are sitting really, you did have some pickup in 2019, 2018, we saw a bit of sales decline, but this is still a really stable situation in terms of sales activity. And I don't know what happened over the past 2 months, but your sales are through the roof starting this year. I'm looking going, well, did something happen? Maybe you guys have insight. Something has caused sales to come up, and you're actually sitting at sales that are closer to those peaks for the first start of the year. So you're starting off 2020 in a very strong situation in terms of overall resale activity. Okay, so now will that last for the rest of the year? We'll see. But again, you're above that longer term trends. Like I'm seeing positive movements in sales activity. And I think that's going to continue. I'm not seeing any dramatic change in your economy that tells me something's shifting, because I'm not. I'm just continuing to see this steady source of improvement. Now, other things that are helping the market is, let's talk about what's going on with the Bank of Canada. Now, there's been a couple of changes. Even from here, we know they dropped 50 basis points. That is I was actually a bit surprised. I thought they were going to come down at least 25 basis points for their rates. The fact that they did that cut. Now, there's a lot of people going, well, that cut's coming because the national economy is struggling. Okay, sure, but let's think about the impact on real estate. The reality is when you still have job growth and you still have things that are improving in your market, those rate cuts will help. So it will help. And actually one of the concerns and one of the flags raised is, are these rate cuts going to cause real estate markets to move far higher than they wanted to? Because the Bank of Canada has been trying to cool the housing market for some time. But this rate cut will help it. So you should actually start to continue to see those sales activity improve. They've also been making some adjustments to the stress test. Now, when that stress test came in 2018, we saw the impact. It makes sense because all of a sudden people could afford far less than what they used to have to. They've come off of a bit. Now, was it a monumental change? Not really. I mean, we're talking really a 30 basis point change in terms of qualification based off of the adjustments that they made. And it's still not certain. Like there's a lot of talk over if OSFI follows that adjustment, and we're not sure yet. Like they said that they might, but I haven't seen it until I see that in writing that that's going to come in. I don't hold a lot of weight on that. So right now it's just on insured mortgages. And that'll be coming in the next month. But the thing is, all of this is happening ahead of the spring market. So these adjustments that have happened, like some of the interest rate adjustments, weren't supposed to happen until later in the year. So because it's before the spring, which is your busier activity, you could see a bigger bump this year than originally forecasted in general for the province. So I think that these changes that are coming in will help support stronger sales activity. It'll bring some people back into the market that might have been pushed out because of the stress test. So now they can come back. And so you'll see some of that activity coming back, I think, this year. Other aspects to consider, which are really important to your housing markets, is what's happening in your population growth. Now, I mean, you're nowhere near the growth that you had in 2006, 2007, but you also saw the spike that caused in your housing market in that time as well. But what we're seeing is continued improvement. So over the past several years, you've had some fairly reasonable growth. Again, when you're sitting at growth of over 1.5%, that's pretty normal. That's the type of growth that you would expect. It's very consistent with what we see in a lot of other cities. And now your population is sitting at over 100,000. So your market is shifting. It's a lot larger than it used to be. And that continued growth is important because it supports further growth in household demand. The more people that are either moving here or growing naturally, the more they need places to live. Okay, so we're starting to see that continue in your market. That'll support further sales activity and growth as we move forward. Another thing that I find interesting is your demographics as far as age. You got a very young population. And the fact that the rest of the province isn't doing that well, you've got these students who are coming out of university, they might stay. Yeah, because you actually have opportunities here. There is a lot of focus to try and keep people in your area, and you've got a very young demographic which will benefit you.
We're working on it.
Well, okay, that's fair. And you guys can ask I feel like you guys are really quiet, and you can ask questions as you go. I don't mind. So, but there's a lot of good things that I see coming out of this region that I'm not seeing these same trends across the province. Right, I'm just not seeing that. So, and your young demographic will again continue to support because these are your buyers coming through. Those are the people that are coming in there. They're your first-time buyers that they're adding to your industry, and they're starting to come through. And all the way through, you've got a very young demographic that'll support your market moving forward. So there's nothing that's giving me any sort of warning flags as far as Lethbridge is concerned. Okay. One thing we've seen a bit of is some of the vacancy rates have been rising a bit. That's in part because of the new construction that's been happening. There's been a lot more rental construction occurring in your market than what we've seen before. So there is a bit of a vacancy increase, but rents are still moving up. So am I concerned about it? No, not really. It's not at the higher levels that I've seen before historically. When vacancy rates get a bit high, then you start to see rents come down. That's when it starts to be a bit more of a concern. Because what it does is, some of those people who are currently renting, it doesn't incent them to move into ownership, right? Because your vacancy rates are still at a reasonable level, it's not enough to dissuade them at this stage. If it gets too high, that's where I start to get a bit more concerned. Because what'll happen is then, people don't have any need to move. Yep.
Sorry, quick question in regards to that. With the stress test and what you see in other regions of Alberta, how are their vacancy rates? Because
their rates are coming down. So the vacancy rates are, absolutely. In other centers, their vacancy rates are coming down because the stress test has really prevented people from getting into ownership. So that big change, and that's what we've seen. That's why institutional investors have been all over rental properties. It's why we're seeing so much rental construction, and that's not just here. We're seeing it across the province because all of a sudden it makes a lot more sense because they're going, well, people can't afford to get into ownership. Now, I'd say it's a real different story here. It's far more affordable in Lethbridge than it is in a lot of other parts of this province. So that is an advantage, again, that you guys have over a lot of different regions. Now, again, you're also, because of the size, you're a lot more sensitive to new projects coming on, right? So new starts and new rentals, you're much more sensitive to it if the building is too strong. That's just the reality of, the new home construction industry. No, this is just residential. It does not factor in any form of commercial. Like the rental would, if it's purpose-built rental, it would count it into that vacancy. That vacancy rate wouldn't include anybody who's renting their homes or anything like that. Like I've always said vacancy measures are probably the worst. The measurement in the rental side of the industry is terrible. So I never look at that specific number. I wouldn't say, oh, it's exactly this rate. I don't really look at it that way. I look at it on trend. How is it relative to previous periods? Because it never fully captures all the information. And it's only measured by CMHC once a year. So it's not great. Not my favorite measure, but I look at it relative to historics. Okay. Now, starts activity has been, you saw a bit of a pickup in 2019 in terms of how much new home construction there was, but it wasn't coming from the detached side. Most of the new construction you had was, the increase, because that's what I look at, is that change, is really coming from more high density stuff, a lot more apartments. A lot of apartment rental construction is where we saw most of that growth. Now, why do I care about this? I care about it relative to what I see in population growth, right? So we look at if your population is growing, but your starts are growing at a much faster pace than how many households should be formed, that's when you get concerns of oversupply, right? And you guys have been there. There's been times where there's been far more starts than the population growth. And when you get oversupply on the new home side, that impacts the resale market because that's the stuff you're competing with if it doesn't show up onto your industry. Now, currently, am I seeing that? No, I'm just not seeing that. I'm seeing that these starts levels, even though they've increased, yes, you're going to have some challenges with the higher density stuff, especially because there's more rental, but it's nothing to be concerned about. The levels are very consistent with what I would see as a very healthy, normal market. And I don't say that very often. If you hear me in Calgary, it's a whole different story. So one thing I am watching and kind of something that I'm reviewing and seeing how it looks is the inventory levels. On the new home side, the inventory levels haven't really come down much. So they have slowed down what has been started. We're seeing under construction come down a bit, but the inventories are kind of sticking around and they're pretty stubborn where they're at. Again, not really a concern, but something to watch. Something to watch if there's any dramatic change, because oftentimes I find builders go, oh, everything's fine, and then they start going at a faster pace again, and then that can cause some changes. Right now, I'm not seeing it, but it's something I'm watching. Okay, so I identify this as a potential risk moving forward. Seeing what those inventories are, not currently in excess supply, but something to watch. Now, on the resale side, I have seen inventories rising. Usually that makes me a little nervous. And generally the amount of listing growth, so this is what the red is here, has been outpacing the sales, right? So that's when you see the inventories rise. I'm a little, again, it's something that I'm watching. Am I really concerned about it? Not quite yet, because your population's also growing. Because your size is getting bigger and your city is expanding, at some point you would expect that the natural inventory levels should also increase. So that is one thing I am watching to see. I get a bit concerned when I see it go up, but at the same time, I don't see it as quite problematic at this stage because of the growth that you've had and just your size. So I think we're almost seeing a bit of an adjustment to newer levels. Now, that being said, if this continues to go in this pace, and I don't know if it will because your starts were so strong, your sales activity was so strong in the beginning of the year. Yes, your listings were also up. But that's one thing I will continue to watch. It's that supply, because generally your demand here has been fairly steady growth. It's the supply fluctuations. And why does that all matter? Because that is what influences price. It's that relationship between the supply and the demand in the market. You can have stable demand and growing demand, but if your supply far exceeds that, that's when you see the influence on price. Okay. So what's happened? Now, months of supply is one of our common measures to see what is that relationship between the supply in the resale market and the demand in the resale market. It did rise. It started rising a bit in 2018. It came up again last year. Now, again, one thing I look at it is you're not as high as what you had been in the past, but you've still had price growth. So, and I try and rationalize this because in some ways it doesn't necessarily make sense. Usually when these things rise, prices tend to come down. Okay, that's typically what we see when months of supply moves up. Now, it hasn't necessarily happened here. In fact, last year you had price growth, which kind of caused me to scratch my head a bit. Because when you have that months of supply increase, usually you at least see that pace of growth to ease, and it didn't. Now, we are seeing a bit of that into this year, so I'm wondering if the lag is a little different. So when this is a bit higher, what I might expect is that it's going to slow that pace of price growth. If this is persistent into this year and this months of supply still remains at this slightly, and it's not, okay, for reference, it is not crazy high, okay? It's not, like in economists, we always think on this, the small margins. It's not like a crazy high months of supply that I'd say, yeah, prices are coming down. But what it might do is just slow that growth. And you had some pretty significant growth in prices last year. When you're having over a 3% growth, that's pretty high. Now, again, where I also struggle is we're dealing with an average price, which is not my favorite measure of price because we know it can be skewed by things. It'll get better when we have better access to the data. When I have better access to the data, then I can look at things a little bit more fully and see what's really going on. So I do apply some caution with that. One thing I did look at is activity by price range as well. So some of the increase that we could have saw last year was could be just a distribution change. So I always like to break things out by price range if I can. We did see improvement in sales in some of the higher price ranges. Now this in part could be, and again, without knowing the details of your data, is some of it because there's new home product showing up on the resale side of your market, pulling up your prices? I'm not sure. These are things that I can't exactly answer without that detail. But so the price increases could be a couple things, just your market continuing on as it is. It also could be caused by some distribution shifts, which is something I'm watching. Now, moving forward, again, when I look at that levels that we're seeing, it's nothing that's saying, hey, there's a price correction coming. In fact, I think you've only had prices decline twice for the history that I had. So you tend to have a very steady price growth in your market. However, that pace of growth might come off a bit this next year. And that will depend on your inventory. So if your inventories stay a bit elevated, if we see some of that construction continue into this next year, it could slow the pace of price growth, but it's not going to derail your market. Okay, so overall, I'm still seeing some very steady activity. And trust me, steady and is good. In this province, steady is a very good thing. We're not seeing that. There still is price declines occurring in most other parts of the province. Right, and they've had almost 4 consecutive years of price declines. So this is not the case here. I continue to see a lot of positive in your market moving forward. You're still very affordable. I think I can't tell you how excited I am about Pillar 9 because then we can do so much more, but it's a good start. Okay, so overall, I'm seeing really good things in your market. The areas of risk. So what I worry about in your market, like first of all, any changes to housing policy affects all markets. So far, the changes that we've seen this year are to the upside. So for years, everything has been trying to cool housing markets, not necessarily our housing market, but just cooling housing markets. It's a bit of a change. So there's a bit of a pullback from that. So that's actually something that can actually be considered an upside risk for our market this year. Now, what concerns me is what happens with jobs. So my biggest concern, because, and I'm specifically thinking if there's changes to budgets and what that might do to healthcare, education, any cutting in funding for research. You guys do a lot of work with research. That's a big employer here. If there's cuts in funding, what could that do to jobs? That's the big unknown to me as to something that can cause your market to derail. Now, is it going to cause a massive change? No, I don't think so. That stuff takes longer. And remember, even if there is job losses in some of those areas, it doesn't automatically impact your housing markets. It takes time. There's always a lagged effect. If you lose your job today, you're not selling your home today. You're not panicking. Usually it's a lot longer lag. So, but that is something to watch, to see if these changes in policy are going to impact any of these areas. Okay. And, there's been a lot, and one of the other risks is the supply. Again, something I'm always watching for. Your demand is very good here. It's about what can happen with supply shifts, more so on the new home side relative to the resale. Okay, so that's something I continue to watch. And if that supply levels start to get a bit too high based off of your growth, then really what does it mean? It could mean that your prices really don't move. That amount of appreciation just stops. It just flattens out. I don't think it'd be enough to really drive prices to come down. I'm not seeing that in your numbers, but that's the things that I watch for, okay? Global risks, there's been a lot of those lately. And they're uncontrollable and unpredictable. So when it comes to your market, it's about how does that impact some of your key industries? So the global stuff, so think about trade. How is trade influenced? And because you're such a big food manufacturer, now that's, again, a really good industry to be fairly reliant on because there is a lot of demand growth continuing in that industry. So it's more about, will those trade discussions, will any sort of supply chain be impacted? And again, those, if they're temporary, it's not a big deal. It's more about long-term. So most of the risks that we're facing right now, when you think about what's going on with the virus and what's happening for supply disruptions, most of those at the current stage are expected to be temporary. Temporary will not have a long-term impact on your housing market. It's more about if there's a fundamental shift in the market, which I'm not seeing. Okay, so even though you might go through these risks, companies might be not as profitable this year, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're laying off massive amounts of people, especially in this industry. So those are things that I watch for. Do I see it as a major risk at this time? Not really. It's a matter of how long some of these risks persist into the year. And will it start to influence employment? Because that's really what drives the housing markets, is what's happening in that overall employment sector. With that said, you guys are really quiet. So thank you. Any questions? No? Yeah. I will make it available to Kathy and she can send it to you. So everything I do is available to you guys. And I will try and expand a lot more of the information because I mean, one of the things about your stats is it's for the entire like everything your board does. My goal when I move forward is to say, hey, here's exactly what's happening in Lethbridge City. Here's what's happening in some of the regions, and let's look at the differences outside of just this overall board number. So we'll get there.
We got a question here.
Yep.
Anne-Marie, can you just give us a little kind of Coles Notes version of the Calgary picture? Because so much of our business is influenced directly from Calgary, and clients, our move in from there is really big.
Calgary picture is really different. Okay, so sales activity, we have had some increases starting this year, but it is still well below long-term averages. So demand is quite low in Calgary. We're still an oversupplied market in Calgary. So far more supply than demand. Prices are continuing to fall. Put in perspective, price adjustments in Calgary since the start of this in 2014, detached alone has been over 10%. That's how much prices have fell on aggregate since this started. I don't expect that Calgary prices will actually start to recover this year, just because there's just still is too much supply. The supply levels are too high, and they are struggling with competing with the new home builds. So new home builders, because wages have gone down and their labor costs are a lot less, they have seen that the new home guys are coming in at prices far more competitive than they used to, and that's impacting the resale market. So that is something that they have been struggling with. Like the apartment sector, so the apartment condo sector has declined by, I think we're sitting at currently 19%. So big difference. And I just don't see any shift happening in Calgary over the near term. Now, last year they actually had some employment growth in Calgary, and some of it was some decent areas where, the job, they get paid more, but the pays are coming in. So the job growth that we're having is coming at a lower pay. So their actual disposable income today in Calgary is about 5% lower than it was in 2014. But costs have continued to go up. So that market, I expect it's going to continue to struggle this year. Like we are seeing some signs of improvement in demand, but nothing like what we used to be. I've often said that Calgary is adjusting to a new normal level, which is at a lot lower than what we had traditionally seen. And that's an adjustment because people in that city, they just got used to prices just going up by 10% a year, right? And they could make household decisions they didn't care. They could buy a house. If they didn't like it, they could sell it and still make their money back. That is changing. So I think fundamentally how people approach housing in Calgary is starting to change because it's not like it used to be. And we're moving into really conditions that are very similar to other areas. Calgary really did get used to those strong price growth every year. And now household decisions are coming back to fundamentals. You're not just buying a house because this is what, you do buy a house as an investment, but for many people, but a lot of people are making decisions not based off their lifestyle. And I think that's what's coming back to traditional sort of, when you're buying a home, you're usually thinking of a longer term investment, not short term, but you're also buying a home because it's your house, it's your home, it's where you live, and it's what lifestyle you want to choose. So I think we're seeing that shift now happen in Calgary, but their market isn't improving anytime soon.
Mine isn't really a question. I just wanted to let everybody know, as the past president of the Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce, if you are interested in economy, we're actually going to be hosting a ministers forum, and it will include the finance minister, Taves, this Saturday, 12 to 2. If you want more information, reach out to me. But that might be an opportunity when we're talking about what's affecting Lethbridge specifically. I just saw on the news this morning there were 42 layoffs at our university. And I want to say 19 of them were actual layoffs. The rest were retiring and such. But I think what we're seeing coming down the budget will actually have some different effects on Lethbridge. So that's an opportunity to get some firsthand information from a handful of our ministers as well as our MLA East. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Anne-Marie. That's very interesting information, something that we track in our office, of course. Just to add a couple of comments. First of all, we are working with Statistics Canada to get Lethbridge properly defined as a CMA or a census metropolitan area, which is only interesting to people like us. But starting in 2022, we should have much better local data that we can play with. And from my perspective, if you look at that economic growth over the last 5 years, in general, we saw about $1 billion worth of investment. So if you think about Cavendish, you think about the university, in the last 5 years, there was about $1 billion worth of new investment into our community. If I look at the pipeline for the next 5 years, that number is actually closer to $2 billion. So we've had a great sort of 5-year sort of trend, but that trend is actually improving. I'm very optimistic about the next 5 years. I think it'll be stronger than what we've seen in the past, as long as some of those derailers that you mentioned don't pop up their head, or we don't have public policy by Twitter in the U.S. drive sort of the economy here. And so we have to manage through those things. So Christy Kruger, I'll invite you up here to talk to us about area and, from your perspective of chair, what's happening with our provincial association.
Am I in charge? Okay. I don't think so. Thanks, Trevor. I am so excited to be the chair of the Alberta Real Estate Association this year. What I can echo that you guys have heard already is how much of a leader Lethbridge is across our province. And I can tell you wholeheartedly, my 4th year on the provincial board, Alberta is a leader across Canada. So it's very, very exciting to be part of. I would say that we are doing some amazing things that I think we're going to see the rest of our country follow. So we will get started. So AREA provides strategic leadership and advances the Alberta real estate profession through member-centric services, advocacy, and professional development. Your membership dues are used to fund various programs designed to benefit you. These include provincial forums, member advocacy, professional development, and member services. Thanks to AREA's advocacy efforts, which is really fun, by the way, a Made in Alberta solution for the federal mortgage stress test was part of the UCP campaign platform and is now a priority of the finance minister's mandate. So we continue to work with government on this particular item. As you can imagine, there are many intricacies with what that actually looks like, but we are pushing forward with it. As well, we've seen condo document fees being capped, providing your clients with certainty. And of course, RECA's advertising guideline changes and licensing fee increasements were both rolled back. So that was really, really positive for us. The government of Alberta has approached the Real Estate Act review on a very, very condensed timeline. I think we had less than 6 weeks, you guys. So that really left us no time for a broad engagement from our membership. And based on past engagement, because I actually was part of a committee at the Alberta Real Estate Association 5 years ago, maybe even 6, on getting started with looking at our act, because it was actually done in 1996 and it has not been updated since then. So we were kind of prepared for that. We'd had conversations across the province leading up to this. So based on that past engagement and coordinating with our local boards, 10 across the province, as most of you know, we focused our advocacy on 3 main asks. So industry approval of the regulator's bylaws and rules, improving the mandate for any extra regulatory services, and requiring greater transparency and accountability from the regulator. All 3 of those things are something that will dramatically improve for the future of real estate if we can get those pushed through. So Area's Professional Development Committee. Did I skip one? Thanks, Kath. Area's Professional Development Committee set the 2020 mandatory course topic after surveying brokers about their training priorities for their associates. So we've just dedicated the course this year to elevating the professionalism of realtors in Alberta, and that's going to launch in early March. You can always access information learning through our In Your Area podcast, available on your favorite streaming, live quarterly webinars, which are also recorded and available on our website. If you're like me, I like to double back while I'm working out. So I'm exercising my body and my mind, and I'll podcast it then. Or in your car, it's a great time as you're driving to places. They're actually really interesting and informative. And if you guys have any really great ideas about what you'd like to hear from us, let us know and we could look at putting something together for sure. Our partnership with SAIT is so exciting, and it continues offerings in the leadership of the real estate certificate. And so that's expanding on the in-brokerage learning opportunities this year in 2020. So in the last year, you had to attend SAIT in order to access these programs. And so we're making them a little bit wider in the range so that you can ask your brokerages to host some of these events. And one of the other things that's super exciting for me, I've been very involved in it. Area and SAIT have been working together to launch a pre-licensing education offering. And so this is focusing on ensuring future practitioners enter our profession better equipped for the realities of our work that we do. So essentially, one of the mandates in our strategic plan is to increase the professionalism of the industry. And one way to do that is to have realtors more practice ready. We all know our first 6 months to a year in real estate, you're kind of left floundering a little bit. And the responsibility does fall heavily, as Mary had said earlier, on the brokers in the room. And so this is one way that we feel that we can help people be better prepared when they're ready to enter our industry, which is so exciting. In October 2018, area members voted in favor of a commission protection program covered by existing member dues that we already receive. Area worked with a committee of brokers from across the province to design a program that protects the commissions earned by members when brokerages fail to pay commissions owed. This program represents a significant investment to protect area members going forward, starting with a $250,000 annual member protection limit. If you guys want to visit our website, we have much more information about this, but this is also a really exciting program that Area made a commitment to its members, and we're really excited to see that put into fruition this year. Area Wireless. This is an expanding program and also something really exciting. This program, you guys, has saved our members over $5.3 million with more than 3,900 area member subscribers. The program gives area members unprecedented rates and access to the latest devices. The wireless continues to work with our service provider to elevate the service offerings to service our needs to the greatest extent. And I can tell you, our staff that is invested in talking with the providers that they challenge those providers. And I can tell you that we going out today would never get what we got because they are already feeling bad that they gave us such a good deal. So we're keeping it and keeping them accountable. So we're also offering an area advance program to 57 different broker partners across the province. And this is also really exciting too, because the program actually brings back dollars to our broker partners as well as our membership. There is probably nothing more important than the safety of what we do every single day. And there were actually more incidents than ever last year, I think, with safety for realtors. So always keeping that top of mind. I know I do it all the time. I text the people in the office to let them know if I'm going into a vacant house by myself, pop me a text or give me a call in 10 minutes, or I give a text when I get there. It's so imperative. So one of the things that Area was able to do was provide our membership a free subscription through Kinetic Global to a safety app. And I don't know if anybody has everybody downloaded that? Yeah? Is that an overwhelming yes? Awesome. So that's just adding an additional layer of protection, the way that safety app is put up there. And especially being from us, I would say a small city, our third largest city in Alberta, our regional district, we do spend a lot of time out in more remote areas. So I think it's really, really important. Last year, we introduced a unique to Alberta interactive statistics dashboard on our website. So it's fully equipped with 18 years of provincial resale data with regional breakdowns. So you can actually go back and get a really good idea of the history, somewhat like Anne-Marie has provided, and go back and see where does Lethbridge fall within the region, or how does Alberta do compared to Lethbridge in general. Updated on the 6th of every single month, the dashboard provides analysis of broader market trends in an easy to share visual format that can be downloaded and used with your clients. So it also becomes a really great tool to use as well. Area's audited financial statements are available online in our annual report, and we also have some copies available here today. If you want one, just let me know. The key takeaway is that Area continues to demonstrate our ability to deliver services and innovate while managing costs. Expenses have been reduced by 6% from 2017 to 2019, and our investments continue to perform well with an 11.9% return in 2019. Revenue has a slight increase in 2019, and in 2020, we're forecasting a revenue stream from the launch of that SATE licensing program that I was talking about earlier. Services Corp, which is our for-profit arm of the Alberta Real Estate Association, had a second year very fiscally strong. The area board's progressive work to build programs under this taxable entity is really meant to save money for our members. And we actually saw more than $3 million in revenue with a net income of $178,000. So as that continues to grow, that strengthens what we're able to provide for our members across the province. Our Services Corp operates independent of the area member dues, and the money made is invested back into the real estate, and again, just ultimately stabilizing those dues. So you haven't seen member dues increase, and we don't expect that to happen with the extensive team that we have in making sure that, we're making really smart investments. So we also saw some additional bylaw changes. They were quite small this year compared to last year, but thanks, Trev. This enabled our provincial administrative justice program to have consistency across the province, regardless of geography. And so, as Kathy mentioned earlier, I think one of the things that's really difficult in a smaller board, and most people know everybody, is reprimanding your peers that you ultimately have to do business with. And so it provides that, but it also provides, there's a level of training and a consistency that can be applied so that there is standards set provincially as underneath of our licensing that will allow us again to gain that traction of professionalism in the industry. So it's really exciting. We also added a definition of a member in good standing. So this is the first year of the new process for the board member selection from the 2019 bylaw changes. So in 2018, I was the chair of the governance committee, and we basically scoured the province looking for ways to be the best board that we could possibly be. And with that information, we provided a bylaw changes that were accepted. And this is in 2019 and fully run into place this year in 2020. And it's really exciting. So we shrunk our board. We have a nominating committee, and that actually we saw come to fruition this year. So again, one of the things that Mary commented on, which I'm happy to go into detail with Eldar if they want to discuss, but with the nominating committee, you don't have to get up and stand in front of your peers and come up with this amazing speech to convince people why you're the good person for the board. It's actually a skills matrix. And then you're vetted through a committee separate from the board. And so everybody's weighted equally. And there's also then the ability to look at where are the needs within that board that actually could round out some of the introvert extrovert that you were talking about. And so this year's the first year that we've done that. And I would say that it was really successful. We had a great nominating committee. And then they made recommendations to the board at area, and our new board got acclaimed at our AGM in January. And we actually have a public member on our board this year. So that's going to be a really interesting dynamic and exciting to see some different ideas come to play too. I think Justin mentioned, some of the things that's really great about board turnover is that you get new, fresh ideas and you get different conversations happening around the table. So that's what we strive for. So we did have 18 members apply and 7 public members apply. We had room for 2 board of director members and 1 public member. All candidates were appointed vetted through the nominating committee, and the nominating committee was appointed by the local board. So again, we had that diverse representation. And then, I'm going to show you who our new board is right now. So in 2020, our board of directors consists of myself, which is a great privilege to be part of this amazing association. And organized real estate, you guys, for anybody who's like new to the industry or just kind of starting to understand it, it is so exciting. It is like the industry that we work in, the industry that feeds our family, the industry that precipitates economic growth in our community. There's good change happening. So it's really, really exciting to be part of. And I'm really, really proud to be a part of that. So our chair-elect this year, pictured next to me, is Mr. David P. Brown. And David is actually out of Calgary, but he is a member of the Edmonton board too. So he's the regional representation for Capital. Mark Aubin is the central representation. Devin Fileski is a south representation. Jennifer Gilbert is a director at large. Jolene Ladine Reimer is also a director at large. And Ellen Mendham is a Calgary regional director. Foothills, sorry. And then public member Tash Taylor and Greg Walsh would be a northern representative. So this is your board of directors. You guys all know how to get a hold of me. All you have to do is go on Matrix and search. You could reach out to me at any time. The different members of the board of directors chair different committees. You can see that on our website. If there's something in particular or you're unsure about who's chairing something like forms and practice, feel free to reach out to me and I can put you in touch with the right person. I would be remiss not to follow in Eldar's footsteps. This is our amazing staff managing directors. Brad Mitchell, CEO, who's going to be answering any questions that you have today, leads an absolutely amazing team, and he would tell you he is absolutely not the leader. Heather and Tammy are in charge, which is actually probably true. But Heather Coleman is pictured next to Brad, and then you see Tammy Williams and Kate Bailey. And this group of people, you guys, man, oh man, they are strategic thinkers. They work unbelievably hard for our industry, and it is absolutely amazing to watch. And I know that our board of directors and I know that our members, whether we actually understand it fully or not, unbelievably grateful. So thank you. Brad's the only one here right now. Okay, so what's up for 2020? The ongoing Real Estate Act review, which is hopefully going to be wrapping up before the first half of the year. Government will be considering items of regulatory accountability, governance structure, and regulatory purpose. As a stakeholder in the review, AREA intends to be involved in shaping the significant changes that are expected to be made, advocating and reinforcing the vital role of real estate. In addition, the implementation of a provincial administrative justice program is underway, aided by the passed bylaws at the AGM. We're hoping to increase the fairness and professionalism of our current system. And please stay tuned for learnings from our member benefits survey, which will be used to guide future program development. Thank you, guys.
So Christy and Brad are both going to be here during lunch. Of course, you're welcome to come and approach them with your questions. But we are going to move on to our final speaker, Mr. Jim Saunders, who's going to talk about the Real Estate Foundation. Welcome.
Thank you. Looks like lunch is going to be late, sorry. You guys all know me. I've been up here before. I promise this time, this is the last time. I've been the chair of the foundation for the past 2 years. One of these mine? I've been the chair for the past 2 years, and this year I'm the past chair. It also happens to be my 6th year, and we have a mandatory retirement policy, so I really am promising that this is my last time. Call it my farewell tour, and I'll try to make it worth your while. So the Alberta Real Estate Foundation was established in 1991 under the Real Estate Act, and our mandate is to enhance the real estate industry and benefit the people of Alberta. We have a very strong and very diverse board. Our board of governance includes 2 appointees from AREA, myself, and Janice Resch from Red Deer. She's a practicing realtor as well. Rika has 2 appointees on the board. We have Krista Bolton, who's a past chair, and Scott Bollinger. Scott was previously a broker owner, and he is currently a practicing real estate lawyer. The balance of our board are public members. Tyran Alt is a communications manager for Suncor Energy. And the new chair, Doug Layton, has a background in planning and architecture. Doug was the University of Calgary's planner in residency for 2019. And our 3rd public member actually was stolen by AREA, and she's now AREA's public member. So we're searching for a new one. Our executive director, Cheryl DePauli, leads a small and passionate team. I have Sarah Stubing here with me today. She's our communications and our investment manager. If you've got any serious questions, she'll be the one to answer those for you. So if I can get this. So what is our purpose? That's better. So if you were to ask, I'm sorry, things got mixed up here. So what is our purpose? If you asked 100 people in the public, what is the real estate industry, you'd get 100 different answers. In this room, I think we'd probably have a better perspective, but to make it easy, we put this definition forth, and I think you'll all agree, real estate touches us everywhere all the time. So where does the money come from? The foundation's revenue is generated by real estate transactions both sales and rentals, across the province. Under the Real Estate Act, whenever a consumer deposits money in trust through a real estate broker, a property manager, or a commercial broker, the interest earned on the deposit is accumulated and forwarded to the foundation for reinvestment in our communities. This is your client's money. We want you to know we don't forget that. And we think that you should actually thank them for us. What we've done is produced a handy little tool. I'll get Sarah to pass a few of these around. The cards we've been passing are your way to thank them for us. Give them to your clients. They'll like us and they'll like you even better. But back to the money. Sorry. I don't use these very often, as you can tell. Back to the money. Individually, it's nickels and dimes. Across the province, it adds up. To date, the foundation has invested over $21 million in grants to 620 plus recipients. Last year, we invested over $1.5 million, and this year we're planning to put out more than $2 million into the community. Sorry. These are some of the initiatives we've been working on lately. Rent Smart, with increasing immigration and migration to many of our urban centers, lots of new residents have never rented before. They have absolutely no experience at all. Many investors are buying property and they've never been landlords. Rent Smart is a tenancy education program that offers support and coaching to help tenants have successful relationships with their landlords. Rent Smart training is available for residents and landlords, as well as a train the trainer session throughout the province. The Capital Regional Housing is the provincial provider for Rent Smart. And there's a web, you can get that address off our website as well. In rural Alberta, more and more real estate transactions include land with oil and gas wells. Buyers and sellers look to you, their agents, for advice and knowledge on how this impacts them and their sales. The rules are complicated. The provincial government has acknowledged the growing problems, and they have promised to implement new policies in the spring of 2020. So we decided to fund two projects. First, the School of Public Policy is researching effective policy approaches that can address public and private challenges from orphaned and abandoned oil and gas wells. This will give policymakers the information they need to take into consideration when they create policies to balance the needs of all the stakeholders. Secondly, if you have clients who have abandoned or orphaned wells in their land, we've developed a primer similar to the Green Acreage Primer. They're kind of like oil and gas wells for dummies, you know? Explains everything to your clients, helps you have the information you need, and it addresses the concerns that are on the table today. The success of these programs speaks for themselves. As of February of this year, more than 4,000 copies of the guide and the primer have been downloaded or distributed to real estate professionals, their clients, and landowners. Just as a sidebar, we also funded WellWiki, which is a website that provides comprehensive information about each and every oil and gas well in the province. There's a link to that on our website as well. In the city, it's another story. Condos, man, oh man. Condo associations, condo managers, they continue to create some of the greatest problems and challenges in our industry. The Condo Law for Alberta websites provides plain language legal information and resources for Alberta consumers thinking about buying a condo, who are currently living in one, or who are renting or thinking of renting. And important this spring, we're adding a new edition, is a section devoted to condo boards and associations. This will include information that boards of directors about their powers and liabilities, board conducts, responsibilities. Next time you're frustrated with dealing with a condo association, you can direct them to this site and they'll get comprehensive current knowledge. These are the same people who have created and managed the landlordandtenants.org site that's been one of our highest rated and best used websites for realtors and their clients for many years. Again, we make these resources for you. Please use them. Never fold your sheets up before you come. So this is our website, www.arof.ab.ca. We have several resources with us. You can download anything here just about any time, or you can stop and see Sarah and I, and we'll put something together for you. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim, very much. Lots going on both with the foundation, and thanks again to Christy who had to duck out. Lots going on with your association. So lots happening in your industry. Good times here in Lethbridge. With that, we're at the end of our meeting today. So just want to say on behalf of your board of directors, thank you for your attendance today. An AGM is a necessary evil in corporate life as we move these things forward. So we appreciate your time and your attendance today. And on behalf of Kathy, if you did pre-register, you are certainly welcome to stay for lunch, which is served. So I'd invite you to stay, network with your friends, talk about how you can figure out Miles's contract, and we'll go from there. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks so much for being here today.